What's going on, guys? Welcome to the David F. Haas podcast. I'm your host, David F. Haas, and if you're wondering if I wear the same sweater every day, the answer is yes. I was just looking back at some of my old videos, and I was like, wow, I'm always wearing the same sweater. But the truth is I own about 4 of these gray sweaters, but now I'm realizing I should probably start mixing it up. Anyways, that's the least of my problems when we look at the state of the world. That's what we're talking about in today's podcast, is the state of the world, where we're currently at as human beings. And there's just a bunch going on, and I kind of want to give you my thoughts on all of them, and kind of give you an indication of where I think things are going based on the knowledge that I have, the intuition. It's one of the things that happens when you grow spiritually. You begin to trust your intuition more and more, and sometimes I'm sure that intuition can get skewed, but I think I have a pretty good handle on where we're heading in society. And I think it's important to know this, because it's really easy to get wrapped up in all of this. And especially when you're in this day and age, I think one of the most pressing issues, and I guess this is where we'll start, is the censorship of big media, big tech, right? Google, Twitter, Facebook, these companies, Apple, have amounted this insane level of power that we have never seen before. And there is really, really big issues with respect to the censorship of information. And we're in Canada here, and we're hearing Trudeau, where this is going when you hear Trudeau talking about things like misinformation and disinformation. And it's like, what is that even? What is misinformation? All misinformation is essentially somebody else's opinion. So if I say the sky is blue and you say the sky is green, we both have the right to have that opinion. And if you start censoring the people that say the sky is green, then we're never going to be able to have open communications. Now, I guess that's an extreme example, but there probably are times when the sky turns green, in storms and stuff like that. So does that mean that it is misinformation? No, not 100%. Right? So I think we're moving into a very, very dangerous place when a few big companies have a lot of power, and they're censoring the information that we're being fed. And, I picked up on this right from the get-go. The second that Twitter banned Donald Trump, that was when I was like, oh boy, this is a game changer. This is when things are going to really shift for us as human beings. And that shift is going to come in the form of really having to dig deep to find the truth. And we cannot, and this is the one thing that Trump did do for the people, was he brought everybody to this awareness that the media has been basically, a one-sided machine for a very long time. And I think people were kind of asleep to that until Trump came around. And now they are waking up to the fact that they're feeding us whatever their narrative is. And, the craziest thing about this is that the people that are at these high levels and making these decisions, I believe they have good intentions. I believe they think that this is what is best for humanity. But there's some sort of quote out there, I can't remember who it's from, but the people that have good intentions are usually the most dangerous people, or something along those lines. And that's very true, because if I say to you, this is what I think is best for you, it's like, well, who am I to say what is best for you? If I'm say a vaccine is best for you, or let's get rid of the vaccine. If I say that peanut butter is the best for you, but you are allergic to peanut butter, then it's not the best for you. Right? So it's that's where we get into this really, really dangerous rhetoric when we have a elite group of people, government, big tech, George Soros's, the Schwab guy there, Klaus Schwab, that are like these puppet masters pulling the strings, and it's all under this cloud of they're trying to make the world a better place, and Hawkins, who's my mentor, who I read all of his material, he said the best thing you can do if you want to change the world is let go of your desire to change the world. And you can tell that these people in these high positions have not let go of that desire. They believe they have a better path for humanity than than they want to see that path unfold. And so they're doing everything in their power to make that unfold instead of just allowing people to make their own decisions and use their own free will. If you're not questioning what you're seeing on Google, what you're seeing on YouTube, what you're seeing on the news, on your Instagram feed, then you're getting trapped in that message. And now here's the thing. You may agree with that message, which is fine. Like, I don't want to censor your ability to agree with that message, but it doesn't mean that I shouldn't have the ability to give my viewpoints, right? Just because one person agrees with Leah Thompson and that she should be able to swim into this thing and someone else disagrees, that doesn't mean that either of them are wrong. And that doesn't mean that one person should not be allowed to voice their opinion. Now, sure, maybe it creates lots of red flags and it creates some tension and there's anger and there's arguments, but this is how we progress. It's like we can't just pick what we think is best and then only show people that information. Censorship, I think, is one of the biggest issues facing us as human beings today, because we are being fed everything. And now, this is not something that's new. This has been happening for years, and this is one of the first things that happened to me when I kind of like woke up and went veg. I'm not here to promote vegetarianism or trying to defend my position on vegetarianism. I've let all that go. But the one thing that I realized was that these big farming, conglomerates, essentially, the dairy and the poultry industry and the meat industry, they created like the 5 basic food groups, right? And so they pitched this through. They would create some sort of a association. The association, and I'm just making this up. It's not made up, but I'm saying this example is made up. The Association for Healthy Living in Canada, right? And so they would do all of these studies. But all of these associations are sponsored by the cattle industry, okay? And then they would get them enacted into government policies. So then kids start learning this in school. And so now you know that you should eat the 5 basic food groups. And what were those 5 basic food groups? Poultry, meat, dairy. So 3 of the 5 basic food groups all come from the cattle/dairy meat industry. Right. And so once I kind of realized that I had been like kind of being fed this information and who I was shaped by a program, which is like, this is how you're supposed to eat, high protein, low carb, whatever that may be. Once I realized that was all a program and I stepped out of that program and I broke free from it, I was able to start making my own decisions and do my own free thinking. Now, back in the day, I was like, vegetarianism was the only way to go. I thought that was the only thing that you should do. But now, as I've been able to form my own opinion and step back and look, I think maybe vegetarianism is not 100% the most healthy diet. Maybe a kind of more of a vegan diet where you eat some fish and maybe even a little bit of chicken here and there is probably even healthier than what I'm doing, right? But it's like, I should have the ability to make that decision on my own, and I shouldn't be being programmed by this like guys from these basically lobbyists that are influencing policy. And the same thing's happening in like the drug. There's a great documentary that you can watch out there. It's called Dopesick. It's not a documentary. It's a series. It's Michael Keaton is the main actor, and it's about the release of Oxycontin into the world, and basically all of these associations that they created to do studies, and how they manipulated the FDA, and the FDA gave them this label that said it was non-addictive. Like, how crazy is that? This Food and Drug Administration, who we're supposed to trust, said that Oxycontin was non-addictive, and now it's one of the biggest leading causes of death amongst young people now, right? It's like, this is just all just wrong, and it's all being done. It's all being kind of like flown under the radar through these organizations that we're supposed to trust, through the government that we're supposed to trust, and we're all just buying into it. So, if you're only watching CNN, I think it's time to start watching Fox News every now and then. If you're only watching Fox News, it's time to start watching CNN every now and then, right? Because you have to be able to form your own opinions, and then you have to do some research. The other thing that's really, really scary is that Google basically controls the internet. Now, how wild is that? So pretty much any website or any web search service that exists out there still has to run the searches through Google to make sure that they're not sites that have viruses or whatever on them. So Google has a list of websites that are blacklisted, meaning if you go to another search engine, if you go to Internet Explorer because you don't want to use Google anymore, it's still bouncing that search off of Google's whatever platform to make sure that the website isn't a website that has viruses. And so Google will essentially blacklist these websites, which means that Google has the ability to shut down any website that does not meet their narrative, which is like a really scary thought, right? So how else do you get information out? And then this is what I'm really interested in, is to see, like, if Donald Trump runs in 2024, how's he going to run? He's not on Twitter. He's not on YouTube. He just did that interview with those YouTube guys, and the interview got taken down. It's like, this is wild. This is a presidential candidate that is not being allowed to go onto a YouTube show. It's just an unprecedented time that we're seeing this, and it's happening because we're in this transitory period of the United States basically losing their dominance in the world. And so the other thing that's happening, the other major shift that's happening, and so I want to talk about three. The one is the censorship, right? The second is the United States losing their power, which is also connected to the inflation that we're seeing, right? So the United States is the primary currency. Like, it is the number one hold of value. And over the course of time, many countries have kind of swapped that position. So, 200 years ago, 300 years ago, or probably 300 years ago, it was Poland, and then it was England, and then it was the United States. And now we're seeing this transition from the United States to China, right? And eventually, probably what will happen is that the yen will become the new primary currency. This is the currency that people want to have most. And so when people want to hold your currency as value, that gives you great power in the world, right? So because you are in control of that currency, you can print as much of that currency as you want. It's not backed by anything else besides the strength of your own economy. So this gives that country that is the primary currency a lot of power, right? And so every time that one country starts basically issuing out too much money, right, which is devaluing their currency, we usually end up moving towards some sort of conflict. Okay, so you can look back. Ray Dalio actually just released this great YouTube video called "The Changing World Order." He's going to explain it a million times better than I can because he just has a really good handle on this. He's been in economics and finance forever. I'm just like a observer with very little knowledge here, but I'm seeing what's happening, and it's playing out right in front of our own eyes, and we can watch it. So what happens as the U.S. continues to print more money, and they're devaluing their currency, they're putting more money in the hands of people, and people are spending that money. And the more money that they have to spend, the more the demand increases. The more the demand increases, the more the prices go up. It's really, really that simple. So the U.S. is creating their own problem, and this has been a problem since 2008, and the government has just been throwing money at the problem, trying to make sure that we never, go into this big economic depression. But I'm not saying that the U.S. economy is going to collapse and never regain its power, but I definitely think that we are at a point where we are going to see a big economic downturn, and it will be also in conjunction with the U.S. losing its status as the primary currency, and that moving into China's hands. Now, the crazy thing about that is that the U.S. is going to fight that with everything that they got, and then that is where we create this concern with what's going on in Ukraine right now, because it is like, this is almost how every world war started. There was like a piece of land that somebody wanted, and they started moving towards it, and so there's different parties that want that land, and eventually there's conflict. So you already see what's happening. Russia and China are kind of teaming up here, and the United States and NATO, they're kind of teaming up, and it's like, oh boy, it's like it's just going to take one incident. And now, if you want to get really deep into conspiracy theories, that incident may be manufactured, because one of the ways that you inject more money into your economy as you are creating all of this inflation and as the economy is about to collapse is through spending. And you can do that with wars. Right? So if you got to start spending a bunch of money on wars, it's a great way to reboot your economy and inject a bunch more money into your dollar, essentially, which will further delay that decline. And so this is what's kind of playing out on the world stage right now. And as I kind of like say all this, and it's like very doomsday, like the world's going to end, someone's going to drop a nuclear bomb. And while I think those are potentialities, I don't think we have to worry too much about it. I actually just released a video about you're not that important. And basically what it is that, you can get all wrapped up and worry about this stuff. And I think there is a sense of preparedness. If you have a bunch of money in the stock market, you might want to consider doing something else with it, like maybe putting it into gold or commodities, because that's probably where the value is going to increase, especially if the US dollar tanks. You're going to want to have your money in something like Swiss francs that's backed by gold. And so there's some preparedness. But as far as you trying to control the outcome of this thing, it's just like a very egocentric view to think that you can affect any change here, right? Ultimately, what it comes down to is that God or the universe or the earth or Mother Nature or whatever you want to call it has got this under control, and everything's going to work out. And even if it doesn't feel like it's going to work out, even if it feels like, even when we're paying $3 a liter for gas and we're like, what is going on? And no one can buy a house. We think it's going to be the worst thing ever. It's all going to work out, and everybody's going to be okay. And you can take some solace in that. And everyone that went through great, tragedies in their life, they always thought that like the worst case was going to happen. Now, that doesn't mean you're not prepared for it, but it also doesn't mean that you're staying up at night, not being able to sleep. And you're seeing a lot of that. Like, people are getting wrapped up in this, right? They're getting wrapped up in this fear of big tech, and the wealth separation is also another thing that happens when more money keeps getting injected into the economy, is that the rich get richer, right? And so we see that now, back in the day, the U.S. economy was all based on labor. Meaning, if you wanted to build a car, right, you hired a couple hundred people, and they put that car together for you, and you had to pay those people. So now those people are earning income, and guess what? They have income to go and buy that car. But because of automation and because technology, right, that would be another thing that we could probably talk about here quickly. And because technology is advancing so quickly that we no longer need that labor to produce things anymore, right? So Apple, which is like the richest company in America, right? Or the world, maybe, I guess. They have something like $600 billion in cash. $600 billion in cash. The company's valued at like 2.3 trillion or something like that. And they only employ 100,000 people, right? When you think about it, there's like 380 million people in the United States, and the largest company only employs 100,000 of them. So you can start to see how that wealth gap is expanding. And so now, as that wealth gap continues to expand and grows greater and greater, the tension between the rich and the people that don't have grows more and more. And so this is why we're seeing the increase of like the Liberal Party, the NDP party. It's all about like the spreading out of that wealth. And now I believe a little bit in that. But all of this has already played out many times in history, and nothing is new here. So there's no real need for us to get all too worked up about it, because the United Kingdom is still there, right? And even after the U.S. kind of reclaimed power, but that was marked by the U.S. Revolution, right? That was the big conflict. When the U.S. was coming into power and the United Kingdom was losing power, that's where they met, in that conflict, right? So my hope is that we won't have to get to conflict to have this transition take place. It's not always through war that this transition takes place. It is, it has been in the past, but now, we might see things like a cyber war, that kind of thing. Like, and it wouldn't surprise me if there was some sort of plant with respect to a cyber attack, or if you look back over the course of the history of like the news, it's always been like one crisis to the next, right? AIDS is gonna. In my era, it was AIDS. It was like everyone in my age was so afraid to have sex because everyone thought they were going to get AIDS, right? It's like if you have sex once, you're going to get AIDS. That's what we were basically taught. And it's like now we're seeing is like the AIDS virus is like it's not even that deadly anymore. Yeah, granted, they've come up with all this medication and whatever else, but it's like that was the pandemic of my era, right? And then it was the bird flu, and then it was COVID, and then now it's Russia, Ukraine. It's like we just keep moving from one crisis to the next, and it's just like at some point we have to start looking at the positive. And the reason that news sources are constantly promoting crisis after crisis is because it's like when you have people in fear, it's like they want to remain in that state, right? So they keep looking to get that confirmation to stay in that state. So the mainstream media right now is pushing that Ukraine is good and Russia is bad. Is that 100% the case? I don't know, right? Because I don't trust anything that's on mainstream media. Right? And COVID proved that to me, right? I just am constantly in a state of questioning. Now, is everything they put out false? No, 100% not. But if the main narrative of the world that we are being fed is that Ukraine is bad, Ukraine is good and Russia is bad, that really raises some red flags to me. And I don't think Putin's a madman. I think that he had some sort of reason to go in there, right? And he understands the consequences of going into Ukraine. So I know nothing about this conflict with respect to the minimal research that I've done. But what I do know is that I'm not just going to sit back and let the government feed that information to me. Now, how much research do I need to do? Not that much, right? Because at the end of the day, like I said, I think everyone's going to be okay, right? But we really want, as a collective, to just start being able to form our own opinions. And we can't rely on news, on mainstream media, on Google, on Twitter, on Facebook anymore. We have to start looking for alternatives if we want to get to the truth, right? So, and then the next big thing that's happening in our society, if we can get through the potential of World War III, which I don't think is going to happen, but if we can get through that, is this technology, right? And there is going to come a point where we are going to be like essentially a cyborg of some sort. Elon Musk is already doing things with Neuralink where he said the greatest limitation to us is our thumbs, right? It's like as fast as you can type, that's as fast as you can receive information. And so he's trying to bypass that. He's trying to bypass having to type something in to get a result, right? So now he's trying to get you where you're wired into the internet, right? And you think, I wonder how far it is from here to Toronto. And then immediately you get that result. Now, if a few companies control that information that's linked to your brain, that's when things start to get a little wild, right? Or if we move into like a social credit system where everyone's driving electric vehicles and then all of a sudden you don't follow the narrative, they push a button and you can't drive anywhere, right? So these are some things that I have been coming on to my radar, and what is it that I'm doing, I guess is the question. So for me, I'm looking at moving any money that I have into like more like more solid commodities. Like actually, I think Bitcoin and Ethereum are a good place to put some money. I think gold is also like a great place to put money, and also in other countries. So moving some money to Swiss francs and trying to figure that out. But I also think that it's okay to keep stocks here in the United States and in North America, because eventually, even if the United States loses its dollar as the primary currency, the United States economy is not going anywhere, right? It's going to bounce back, and I think that we're still going to be okay in that regard. So I don't think there's that much panic with respect to your money. Where I think that there is issues is the censorship and the move towards this one world order, social credit system type style thing. And so how do you prepare for that? Well, for me, I'm just like looking at options to prepare to leave if I have to, So I'm reading this book right now by this guy, Neil Strauss is his name. And it's called Emergency. And basically he was this guy that was like this weak person his whole entire life. And I haven't gotten that far in the book yet, so I can't tell you about it. But basically, he decides to like learn how to like survive in the event that the whole world goes to shit. So I guess he's a little bit of a doomsdayer, thinking the whole world's goes to shit. But I think it's important to have like these skills and to have a little bit of know-how, because there probably is some really trying times ahead of us. But the most important thing is to not get so wrapped up and continue to project to the future and think about all the bad things that are going to happen, right? It's like, I heard Joe Rogan say this once. It's like hard men create soft times, soft men create hard times, and then hard times create soft. Oh wait, I screwed it up. Wait, hard men create soft times, soft men create hard times create hard men. So it's like a cycle, right? So. And obviously using the word men, we're just talking about in general population. So ultimately, if we go through a struggle, we'll come out stronger, and that will just be our destiny. And, people I'm thinking about having another kid, and like, should we bring another kid into the world? And this is the stuff that you can get wrapped up in when you start thinking about all of this. But the best thing to do is just to try and remain present as possible. Have a little bit of preparedness, don't just wait, until they're knocking at your door. So a little bit of preparedness in the event that things do go bad. And then the last thing is just to just continue living your life and have fun and enjoy your life, right? Because like this is ultimately what we're meant to do here, is to live and to not live in like a state of fear. Because if we get wrapped up in the fear, it'll be debilitating. You won't have kids. You won't start that business. You won't go traveling because you think, oh, it's not safe right now, right? And so fear will keep us trapped. And that's exactly what, I think where the mainstream media, these big tech companies want to keep us, is in fear and not thinking for ourselves, because that way they can continue to push their narrative. So this podcast will probably get deleted or something because I'm calling out all these people. But anyways, it's a bigger conversation that needs to be had. But I think it's really interesting to like just take a look at it all. You can check out that Ray Dalio video on the changing world order, because I think that's really is a good explanation of what's to come for us. And it may not be for another 10, 20 years. Who knows, right? Because the U.S. isn't going to go down without a fight. Well, hopefully it's not a fight, but like won't go down with like a big fight. So there is a changing time, but it doesn't mean that it's the end of the world. It might end up being the greatest thing that ever happened to us. Who knows? Maybe we'll stop getting less focused on getting and more focused on like just living our life to the fullest. Anyways, let's leave it at that. Thanks for taking the time to listen. I know that was a random podcast, but it's just me talking for 25 minutes, but hopefully you got some value from it, and I'll see you again next week.